Okay, we're good.
I love it. I'm Edwin Wong, the curator of the Risk Theatre Playwriting Competition. I'm super happy to be here today with Stephen Bogart. He's the winner with his play Made in Heaven of the 6th annual competition. And it's hard to believe it's been 6 years, but I'll read out Stephen's bio. Stephen Bogart is a playwright, screenwriter, and freelance stage director. In 2015, he received a Massachusetts Cultural Council Fellowship Award in Playwriting for The Last Skywriter in the Universe. He was a 2009 Massachusetts Cultural Council grant recipient in playwriting for his play Pig Cat, receiving the Holland New Voice Award at the 2009 Great Plains Theatre Conference. In 2015, Wheelock Family Theatre commissioned him to write and direct a new adaptation of Pinocchio through the lens of Japanese mythology. His play Alice in War was chosen for an Equity Showcase production at Ariel Toppers. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes.
Summer Play Festival NYC in 2007. He is also an award-winning screenwriter, placing in multiple competitions. His screenplay, Blood's Child, was optioned by True Friends Production in LA. He co-wrote and directed his first feature film, Orange Crush, which is currently being edited. He has directed for the American Repertory Theater, Cabaret, among others. So lots of irons in the fire, Stephen.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of irons in the fire. Yeah. Yeah. I would just as we go on, I just want to say right off the top that thank you so much for creating this competition and also your whole idea about Risk Theatre. I'm really very excited and honored that somehow I won, which, is really kind of wonderful. And I didn't really know about Risk Theatre. I saw the submission information. I think it was through the Playwright Center. I don't know if you post submissions there. I don't remember, and I thought, I read it, I just read that it was about tragedy, and I knew that Made in Heaven, from my point of view, was a tragedy. But I didn't know that it would necessarily. I mean, I didn't know your mission and how you were redefining or trying to bring tragedy back into our consciousness. So I was very surprised and excited. And I think what you're doing or what you're trying to do is really wonderful. And I think it's a huge challenge given the kind of culture we are living in with drama and movies, etc. I mean, I know the idea of tragedy, certainly I guess almost everybody studies the Greeks, right? And we understand what tragedy is from the Greeks' point of view. And I guess in colleges, maybe they do more tragedy than they do I mean, I don't think that than is done in the sort of commercial world. Certainly Shakespeare's still done a lot, but I think it's a noble goal that you're trying to do. So I want to
Yeah,
thank you up top. Yeah.
thank you for taking a chance and participating in the conference. And that means so much to me in this exploration of tragedy. I should say a few words about the competition. So now it's going into its 7th year. So this is years and years ago when I was an undergraduate. I was working on theories of tragedy, and I came across a couple of ones that just didn't work out. And finally I settled on the idea of tragedy as dramatizing downside risk and comedy as dramatizing upside risk. So the idea came that all of drama, they're really just dramatizations of risk. They're simulations of people going all in on big bets. In comedy, people that have no chance of succeeding, they succeed. And the moral of comedy is to encourage young people or young at heart people to take risk, because I noticed that in comedy, the protagonists tend to be quite a bit younger. And then in tragedy, the moral of tragedy is that if you've already got it all, don't take the big risk, because like don't risk the things that you need, don't risk the things that you already have to get things that you don't need, because you're going to blow up even if you got a foolproof plan. So I came up with the academic idea, and then I was like, well, like how am I going to get people to be actually interested in this and to experiment with the idea to see if it works in real life? And that's where the competition came in. I thought, okay, I got to have a theoretical side and then a practical side. So I started the competition to invite with the incentives that I thought would be enough to get people interested in it. And then we've been chugging along, and now we've got Made in Heaven. And as you say, with a title like that, Stephen, that Made in Heaven, that just screams tragedy. And why don't do you have the synopsis handy?
I do have it. I can read it. When Adam Huntsman, an illustrious and tenured art history professor, unexpectedly includes Jeff Koons' sexually explicit photographs made in heaven in his senior art seminar, shock and disgust for Huntsman ripple through the community of an elite art college, forcing Nancy Pandora, the first appointed female dean, to face afflicted academia's entanglements surrounding academic freedom of speech, and the politics of art in the post-Me Too cancel culture. Focused on trigger warnings and what constitutes sexual harassment, the professor refuses to back down and find a compromise to his position and prerogative to teach controversial content. At the same time, the proper response to his arrogance becomes a central dilemma. Yeah.
It's got everything. It has everything. So I'll have a little note in here that I guess during our conversation, there's going to be probably spoiler alerts. So for
Yeah.
people who have not read Stephen's play, if you want to, is it available on NNPN or for people to?
Yes, it's available on New Play Exchange.
Okay. I'll
Yeah.
find the link and put it into the description. That should be easy for me to find.
Yeah, I can also get the link and send it to you.
Oh
Would
yeah,
you
if
like
you
to?
email me the link, I'll put it
I'll
in
email you the
the
link.
description, and then people that want to read the play first, they can come back and check out our interview afterwards.
Okay, cool.
So how did this it's a timely play for sure. So the jurors, one of the things that the jurors enjoyed about the play, that there is a long discussion about which play to pick. We have a Zoom meeting in the final meetup where the jurors, they're anonymous to each other. I distribute things, and I don't actually read the plays, any of the plays, while I'm jurying this thing. And then they meet up, and there was a long discussion about which play to pick, obviously. And one of the things that the jurors found was that it's a really timely play with what's going on in our world today. And I wanted to ask you, Stephen, you how you formed the idea, how this play came to be. How long has it been, and how did it start?
Yeah. So being an artist myself and believing that artists should be able to create what they want to create, and also that artists are often and sometimes unintentionally or unexpectedly challenging our beliefs or confronting things in different ways. So I'm very passionate about artists' freedom of expression in general. It's very important to me. And then I think it was in 2018. There was a video avant-garde video artist who was a professor in a local art college in the area. And he was teaching a seminar, a senior seminar in video production. And it was the end of the fall semester. And it was his last class. The students had submitted all their work, done all their work, and it was just the last class before the break. And he asked them to bring in pieces to show that they were working on, but that weren't part of his curriculum. And students, nobody brought anything in. So they didn't have anything to show and talk about. So he decided at that moment to show them an avant-garde video piece that he made in 1980, I believe. So like, what is that? Like almost like 30 years earlier or something, like longer than that. And so it was this, and the video is available. So because I looked it up and I watched it, and it's this very abstract video of lots of images of buildings and construction and cities, and you're bombarded with these images. It's like thousands of images, but I think it happened maybe 3 times in, it suddenly slows down, and you see 2 bodies making love. But it's not graphic, but you can tell what they're doing. And then it picks up and goes again. And it happens 2 or 3 times. He showed it to the students. And then after he showed it to them, he told them that he was the actor with his partner in the video. And the students, I don't know if I don't think all of them, but I know well from the controversy, 1 or 2 or several, I don't know how many, were very upset that they watched their professor having sex. So they reported him to the president of the school, and they immediately called him down to the office. So they didn't even follow proper protocol, where if he was going to be called into the office about some kind of allegation like that, he had to be informed ahead of time what the meeting was about. So they called him in, and it was this huge blow up. It was reported in the newspaper as well. And I read it, and I was like, oh my God, this is just awful. And he also he had some kind of physical not a disability, but some physical thing where when he gets upset, he gets very gestures, and he looks aggressive when he gets upset. And he posted this rant on Facebook about how all the students everybody, the school, the students, the university were coming after him. And, he was very upset, and he looked like he's lost his mind. Um, and I was very moved by this whole situation, and mostly I was like he made a I guess he made a mistake. That's where I was sort of like, did he make a mistake by showing this, or did he make a mistake by revealing who the actors were in it? I mean, it's 40 years old. It's out there in the world, and they're taking a art video course with the professor who's an avant-garde artist. Like I was caught in this, like, did he make a mistake, or are they overreacting, or whatever? Um, and his job was on the line, his pension was on the line, all this stuff was on the line. Luckily, they didn't fire him. So it turned out but I think he probably retired soon, because I think he was close to retiring anyway. But so that was the impetus for me to write Made in Heaven. And then I wrote it pretty fast. I wrote a first draft, which was only about 64 pages. And I had a local person in the theater community. She was doing these monthly play readings at a restaurant. So she would reach out to different playwrights and say, "Hey, do you have a play? Let's have a reading." And she would find the actors, and then this restaurant owner he donated the restaurant upstairs, and then he would feed the actors afterwards. They'd all get a free meal for reading the play. And so she reached out to me, and I said, "Yeah, how about this?" So we did a reading of that, and the feedback was great. Everyone was like, "This is great," right? But it's a great first act. They're like, "Where's the rest of it?" So it's sort of like I set up all the problems, but I didn't go deeper with, like, how does this thing snowball even further? So from there, I did another draft. I had another reading with a theater company. I did another draft. I had another reading, and it just kept going like that. So it's been 6 years. First draft was like in 2018, and my last draft was about 3 months ago. It was up to a 150-page script, and I thought, it's too long. So I ended up cutting 30 pages out of it. Now it's the 119-page script, which is about a 2-hour play, I think.
So from 60 something pages to 150 after the initial feedback. And then now it's lean and mean at 121 pages. And
yeah,
the and all the characters in these 121 pages, they've each got their issues, which makes the play interesting. And maybe we can go into the play. So Huntsman,
yeah.
is it Adam Huntsman?
Adam Huntsman, yeah,
So he's the professor,
right.
and he seems like he's divided. You've given him a crisis, whether he chooses his integrity or his
Mm-hmm.
humility.
Mm-hmm.
And then behind the scenes, his wife is also dying,
She has cancer. Yeah.
which he's not really handling, which he cannot handle. He's not just not handling it well. He just cannot.
He can't deal with it. He can't deal with it. Yeah. And that's where one of the things where he was supposed to take his wife for treatment, and he ended up calling a neighbor and having the neighbor take his wife, and um, that became a thing for the provost, the president of the university, who was his former student years ago. So that was a complication for him and for her, more of a complication for her, because he uh, he was her mentor, uh, and she had a lot of respect for him. So she was also put in this difficult position of how do we deal with this? He's not cooperating. He's not cooperating in terms of like he could, from the university's point of view, from her point of view, uh, it's not about his integrity. For him, it's about his integrity. For the university, it's not about integrity. It's about how are you taking care of the students.
Yes, and there's the it was it the Johnson scandal? Because in the play, her predecessor
Yeah.
had
Her predecessor that she took over for was fired because of sexual allegations.
so she's got Karen has that on her shoulders.
Nancy.
Nancy has
Yeah.
that on her shoulders, as well as and then Nancy has a, a is
A daughter.
estranged.
Yeah, and they're not totally estranged, just as they don't see each other very often. The daughter is living on a different coast and has been in town, and all this blows up when she's trying to like reconnect with her daughter, and so that creates some complication for her in terms of having to sacrifice time with her daughter to deal with this situation.
Yeah, because and that's yeah, that I love the tension. The phone keeps ringing. Every time the phone rings, it's like it's not going to be good.
Right, and sometimes the phone rings and it's the school paper that wants to do an article about it, and I think another time it's the did I say it? Is it the Times? Yeah, I think it's the Times that calls and they want information. I think is that in the script? I've got 17 drafts. Things have changed so many times. Sometimes I get confused what I've left in or not. So
And then there's the Rachel Lawrence, the Title IX officer. I had to look that up. So Title IX officers, this must be a thing in the States
yes,
that they
every
look into sexual harassment.
yeah, not just sexual. Title IX in general has to do with equity for uh, uh, students in general. Like, is it, like, for example, athletes often like Title IX will come into play, for example, if they don't allow, for example, a woman or a female to try out for a certain team, but it a lot of times comes down to sexual allegations, and it's with anybody in the university. It's not just students, it's anybody. So they oversee that, and they have to handle investigations when there are allegations.
So it's a powerful position, and it seems that she cares about her job, but she also, like Huntsman, goes too far because yeah, she by going to the Times, she steps beyond the
Well, she broke protocol that she went outside of the university. She went, instead of trying to deal with it internally, she went outside. But from her point of view, she was pushed to that limit by him in that meeting that he comes to see her, which was also like not okay that he just did that.
yeah,
That he just
that
shows up.
Nancy had a hand in, well,
Right.
Nancy was trying to help her mentor by teeing up that meeting, but
Yeah.
it just degenerated so quick. And that's one of the yeah, that's one of the lovely things that I liked about the play, the interaction between Huntsman and Lawrence.
Rachel. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
like
They're
stichomathia. They're like pitter patter, like quick
yeah.
exchanges. Like
Yeah.
she'll be like, you'll you lack humility. And he'll be like, but I talk to the students like they're adults. And then it
Right.
just, and they go back and forth, and it's, they're good. That would be exciting to see. When I was reading it, I was like, this would be good on the stage. Like they're
Yeah.
machine gun.
Yeah.
They have a good dynamic.
Yeah. I mean, they're both super smart. And, she did her research. So, his arrogance is to me, from my point of view, his arrogance is his downfall. And he, he thinks he knows more than everybody else. And so when he is confronted with her, she's equal to the task of dealing with him.
Oh yeah, and I learned. So thank you so much for this. I learned so much about art and artists. I don't know very much about art. I had to look up a lot of these things, but that's one of the things I like about the theater when I learn something. So I didn't know all this history about Rodin,
Oh yeah.
like those weird stuff that he was doing that would not pass. Like there's no way that would pass muster today.
Yeah.
And
And, a lot of them. I mean, that's one of the things that's happened in the past, what, 10, 15 years is like all these artists from the past. So, so many of them, when you look into their detail of their lives, there are problematic things that wouldn't pass muster today. To me, from my point of view, it's like, why are we canceling their art? You know, if they've made a huge contribution to art history and the development of art, why are we canceling it? Like, yeah, put a plaque up next to the work or whatever if you, but that's one of the dilemmas that I personally have to. So
well, yeah, no, that's interesting. I've been working on Shakespeare,
mm,
and one of the things I just read in a biography is that back in his day, during the Elizabethan times, there was the battles between the Protestants and the Catholics. And a few of the biographers have traced down information that Shakespeare's family and the Arden lineage of his mother, they were sort of on the Catholic side. And they cite things like the ghost in Hamlet and then different family history. But his father was in Stratford, Shakespeare's dad. He was a person of some repute,
mm,
like a alderman at times and the Glover. And one of the decisions his father had to make with art was in the local Stratford chapel, there were these medieval wall paintings that were Catholic. And as the alderman, he had to make the decision to whitewash it when
oh,
they banned when they were starting to persecute the Catholics.
oh,
It was apparently there were
oh,
beautiful
wow.
works of art that
Yeah.
destroyed. They 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 had to so this this cancel culture, after reading your play and then reading other things around, it's an ongoing, it's not just us. I guess it's like
Yeah.
it's constantly happening. Or even when Christianity was rising and then they were destroying all the pagan
Mm.
art and artifacts. Where do you see this where do you see this going? Your play definitely is a platform. And the one thing that I really enjoyed about your play was that I couldn't, and I found that similar to Shakespeare. When reading Shakespeare, I often, when he talks about different issues. For example, we talked about this earlier, that
Mm,
As You Like It is ageism is one of
mm,
the things that he talks about. But I can't tell from reading the play which side of the line he's actually on. And it was the same with Made in Heaven. I think both Huntsman and Lawrence they're equals. They're ideologically, one side represents the freedom of speech, and one side represents looking after people, the nurture and looking after people, and where the wheel of history is actually seems to be turning,
mm.
and they seem to have equal voices. Yeah, I guess my question is, what do you hope people come away with after seeing the play or reading the play?
Mm. I mean, the play brings up a lot of complicated things, and I think depending on where different people are in their point of view about all of this stuff may land on different sides.
Oh, for
Uh,
sure.
but my hope is that on the bottom line is that people start talking about compassion. And so like um like so at the end of the play, after Huntsman has been fired and he's packing up his books and his office, and the his student Owen comes in to talk to him, and Owen is the student who um, his sister committed suicide a year earlier from incest by her father. And she was the real artist, Ginny. She shows up in the play as a ghost a couple of times, or of his imagination, his fantasy. She, from his Owen's point of view, she was the real artist. But even even so, even by the end of the play, from the student, from Oren's point of view, even Huntsman made this mistake. He could have backed off. He could have provided a trigger warning for this material he showed to the students. But even then, Oren is saying, I understand what Jeff Koons was trying to do with his art. I understand what you were doing, but you could have still showed, you could have provided a trigger warning for those who maybe would be struggling uh, with issues around sexual assault or other things. But Oren was still showing compassion to Huntsman even through all of this. And my feeling is like people make mistakes. Like should and yet Huntsman lost his job because of his arrogance. But if he wasn't arrogant and he said, you know what, you're right, I made a big mistake. I'll use trigger warnings from now on and make sure blah 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 blah. I don't think he would have lost his job. Um, and or maybe I don't know. In some situations, maybe he still would have. Maybe it was like, too bad, you're gone, you're out of here. I don't know. But my hope is that people think through all of it and think we have to have compassion for each other. And people make mistakes. And yeah, he was a bombast,
Yeah.
arrogant, and and that was his mistake. Was his mistake? I don't know. To me, it's still very complicated. But I feel like I'm hoping that the conversation becomes more about how we have compassion. Do we have compassion? What is compassion? That's for me. And I know that's not really talked about in the play, really. Is there? Maybe sort of in, tangentially or subtextually here and there. I don't know.
Well, so, well, I guess his arrogance also makes him great. So he's like the rock star art professor in the whole world.
Right.
It's I like how how you set that up. So I like speed in plays, and I like how in the opening scene when Oren knocks on his door, you set that up with so few lines. I was like, damn, that's good, because like Oren comes in and he's like, hey, prof, can we talk about my paper? Do you know who I am? I've got this many students. I'm doing a book and I'm rocking it.
Yeah.
Like he's actually boasting of what a hard ass he is. Just and you
Right.
get everything you need. In that first page, I was like, damn, like that is like you know everything you need to know about Huntsman in the first page, which
Yeah.
I thought, and yeah, his arrogance has probably got him to the top.
Right. Yeah. 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 It's a a double-edged sword, I suppose, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then so Oren is he so Oren's the one that reports him to Rachel Lawrence.
Uh,
No. Did I?
no, Oren's not the one who reports him. There's two other students in the class reported him. Oren's the one who, after he met Rachel, she walked by his when he was in the studio trying to make art and making art with his feet. I don't know
Yeah.
if you remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she talked to him and then realized, oh, this is a Huntsman student. Um, Oren and I this the scene used to be in the play, but I took it out. Oren went to Rachel to talk to her about Huntsman. Um, she didn't go to he didn't go to report and tattle on him. He was trying to talk about it because he wanted to write a paper and also he wanted to understand more. And he 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 said what he thought about what Huntsman did by showing that work, which was he didn't necessarily agree it was the right thing to do. Then he worried that she was going to use his words against Huntsman, which is when he comes back and we see that scene with her where he's talking about pillories and the Ethan Frome, the Scarlet Letter stuff, and basically comes out and says, I don't want you to use my words. Please don't use my words, because he didn't want Huntsman to lose his job. So he, as a vulnerable student, said things about what he thought about what happened that he didn't afterwards didn't want her to use against Huntsman.
So Oren's one of the people that reports Huntsman to the
No,
Title IX. No, he's
no. There are two students in the class. They're mentioned. Oren and Lena, two students, they talk about those two other students who want to see Huntsman fired and brought down.
okay. So the two students, yes, I remember that. The two students that they mention go to Huntsman, and then after that, Huntsman talks to Oren and gets a little bit more information that.
You mean Rachel? Rachel talks to Huntsman. Rachel talks to Oren. Rachel, yeah, yeah, about Huntsman, yeah.
And then but Lena, she loves Huntsman.
Oh yeah,
And Lena,
Lena loves Huntsman, absolutely, yeah. Because Huntsman, the way Huntsman lectures and teaches, he's no bullshit, and he just
yeah,
puts stuff out there, right? And he doesn't mind challenging and confronting and shaking his students up with ideas and imagery, etc. And Lena's all for that, and she's hot stuff. She's pretty radical, as she's really drawn to very controversial art. And
yeah. So yeah, yeah. Yeah, that sticks in my mind. That part where she was doing, what was it, sculpture, and she was getting her human models not to do a pose, but to like go on top of each other. And then the professor is like, Lena, I'm not sure if you can do that. But
Right.
and then there was like, but if you let me watch, and I was like,
Right.
God.
Well, that image of she was doing a body sculpture and she wanted to do a body sculpture of two people making love. And so she used her classmates to get naked and lie on top of each other. And then she would do the body sculpture over them. But but actually that idea, I actually saw that idea when I was a student. I went to the museum school in Boston for art. And at that time that I went, I mean, I think it's a pretty wild place still, but not as wild. There were just wild stuff going on with artists. And there was a student who used her two friends to lie on top of each other and do a body stuff. That's where that idea came from. But
It's vivid. Like, are they still doing like, so what do they do? Like, I know, like, from, okay, Rodin that you mentioned in the play, I know that um he used to live in this house where he would have all sorts of uh I think both males and females. The house rules were, I don't know if he was dressed, but the house rules were the other people had to walk around naked so he could figure out the intricacies of how the body looks when it's in motion. And then he would have all these strange affairs that are also brought up in the play. That's Rachel and yeah, Adam get
yeah.
into that in that really fast, rapid fire dialogue with him on the side of the artist, and she's like shaking her head like there's like that's just ain't right. So like is so what do they do in art school now, like in today's culture? This, do you know?
I don't know. I assume, and I don't know if it's right, my assumption's correct, but if you're going to go to art school and you have to study the figure, I think they still have figure drawing classes. So I imagine that there's still nude figure drawing classes. Um, but I imagine that there's a lot more guardrails around all of this stuff now because it's so easy for something to be misinterpreted and then suddenly it becomes this issue. So, but I don't know because I haven't really been in any art schools in a long time. So I really don't know what they're doing.
So of the hats you wear, you're a director, playwright, and an artist.
Yeah, I was originally went to the museum school for fine arts as a painter. And while I was there, I mean, I did theater in high school, but when I was at the museum school, um, yeah, I'm still a painter. I still do art, but I was drawn to theater. I was always drawn to theater on some level, but I was taking these experimental music classes at the museum school that blew my mind. And I think that was sort of feeding this other thing that I had inside me about creating theater. And so when I graduated from the museum school, I started getting involved in some theater, and one thing led to the next, and I started teaching, and then I started devising plays with students a lot. I think over the years, I probably have devised like 50 or 60 plays with students, starting from a theme or an image, and then we work on creating the whole concept for the play and the style and the form, and then write it, and actually script it, and then stage it and put it on. And I was doing that for many years. And then one year I maybe about 20 so years ago, I thought, wait, I could also write my own plays. I'm already writing plays with the students talking about character and conflict and form, etc. And so I started writing my own things as well. And that's what I've been doing. I've been and then I've been directing professionally off and on here and there. Uh, Whenever a project comes up, I'm not going and trying to get projects, but every once in a while a project shows up for me. So yeah.
How does that? Yeah, here's the question: how does being a painter change your playwriting, or make you like? Does it add to the?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah. Well, especially, I mean, with Made in Heaven, my knowledge of art and art history was, and I still had to research things, but I felt like I was home, exploring, writing all this stuff and looking at the artists and finding things. And so definitely myself as a visual artist informed Made in Heaven, but also Made in Heaven is one of the more, um, I would suppose, realistic plays that I've written. A lot of my plays are much more magic realism, with lots of weird things and surreal things happening in imagery. So I think that uh, uh, um, that I'm what is that? That way of writing is informed very much by me as a visual artist. So, and also certainly screenwriting is very visual medium. So I think I I'm naturally a visual artist even in my writing.
yeah. Your command of you, I don't know. I don't have a background in the arts, but from reading your play, that your command of the terms and all the different, there must be 100 different or even over 100 different works of art mentioned at various points in the play.
Is it that many? Wow.
Uh, I should count them. I should count them. I should count them up. But it's a whirlwind, and the fun thing is that enough art and artists are mentioned that to even to a layperson, they'll be able to make the connection with with a few of the pieces. So
Yeah, there are some mentions of some pretty obscure artists, but I think some of the artists that Lena was drawn to, but what I tried to do was have from her point of view so we could understand what it was about that art or what that art was. So it wasn't just name dropping kind of thing. So yeah.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
the artist who took his own blood and froze it and made a sculpture of his face with his own blood. I don't know if you remember that in the script or
Oh yeah, like those like burned. No, the art is There was one piece I knew. I was wonder if it'll show.
oh yeah. Oh yeah, the Pope. Yeah, that's a great piece. The Pope screaming. Yeah, great piece.
So when I got tickled a little bit when I was like, okay, there's one I know.
Yeah, I had fun with that. Yeah.
The Yeah, another thing I loved about the work was, well, from my background, I started with the classics. So I come to theater from the way of ancient Greek and Latin theater was was
Mhm.
where I went to school, and I work a lot on Shakespeare these days. And the most fascinating thing, and this is a different perspective than most playwrights, is that I learn about all these Renaissance and ancient cultures through their plays. I look at their plays as 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 crucial to understanding those. It's like an archaeology. You found a
Oh, yeah.
play and it's part of the archaeology. So reading Shakespeare, you can get a sense of the things that were going on in that time about succession, like different things that they were thinking about and was in the air of those times. Or like even Sophocles' plague play, the Oedipus, that was written actually during a plague when the third of Athens died,
Oh.
and performed like during the, and I was like, whoa, those people were different back then. Because if that happened today, like you wouldn't be doing that. So, but or or different ancient plays talking about I'm reading Sophocles' Ajax right now, and it's about friends and enemies. And at that same time the Peloponnesian War was going on, and the alliances were shifting, friends were becoming enemies and enemies friends, and that comes out in the plays. And in so with the competition, what I'm hoping for is not a play of just for today, but a play for all time. So that in, like, could you imagine this, Stephen, in 500 years, people, some scholar of the future in 500 years, they'll be like, oh, there was this Me Too and cancel culture thing going on in the 2000s. How can we learn about it? Oh, there's a play by this Stephen Bogart called, and it references all these works of art that will will still be known, and possibly they might still be known because of your play. Because if no one talks about these things, like things
Right.
get forgotten.
Yeah, I don't know. Who knows? I have no idea. But that would be funny. Yeah, that would be interesting.
Because something like in 400 or 500 years, it when the people of the future look back on us, like it will be the archaeology, and it will be the art that that survives.
Yeah.
And this play is, it captures the moment of these times. That would be fascinating for the people of the future to look at, to look at all these characters of how we lived, like of Huntsman and Rachel Lawrence and
Yeah.
Nancy Pandora, and it would just be so fascinating for them.
Yeah, and so thanks to your competition, maybe it has that chance to live that long. Because it's I don't know if the play will ever get produced. We'll see. I don't know. It's been challenging. Theaters don't. I think they're I think we talked about this before a little bit, that they're reluctant to do this play.
And they're reluctant to. Have you had conversations with theaters already? So you,
Uh, I've had lots of rejection.
but then during the initial readings, it was quite.
Oh yeah, people were very excited about it. Yeah, but they're not the producers, right? They're not the theaters and the producers. But we'll see. Maybe this award will help people take more notice. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, that's the one thing I'm hoping that competition will help playwrights get their plays noticed. Because now, because when it started out, no one really knew about it. In fact, but now it's been 7 years. It's been going on for 7 years. Uh, we've really had top-notch jurors. The jurors, if people go, I'll put this into the description, but if people go on to the risktheater.com site
Mhm.
under the winners call tab, all the jurors from each of the seven, and the jurors change every year, so they'll interpret risk a little bit differently, which is interesting as well. Yeah, it's fascinating how differently people interpret what risk is.
Oh, yeah. Huh.
But yeah, there have been lots of like really uh, top names that have, and then people talk.
Yeah. Right. Well, I sent out an update to my email list about the award. And I have several playwriting friends who are like, whoa, that's huge. And another, like, they know about the award. In fact, I think a couple of them even were submitted a couple of years ago. So I think the word is spreading about this competition.
Yeah, and what I hope to achieve with the competition is to create, it sounds so bad, but to create a brand of theater called Risk Theater, that a theater looking for to do a new play would be like, oh hey, let's we can look here, we can look there, and oh maybe a risk play would be interesting. So a brand of theater that is looking to dramatize these risk scenarios with like like all these people, they're just taking like, it's brilliant. They're taking, Nancy's taking a risk by helping her mentor. She's sort of supposed to be letting Rachel Lawrence do her thing, but she's she's getting her fingers dirty, and she's got that the Johnson scandal right in the rear view
Yeah.
mirror. And then there's obviously Huntsman, like this is the sword he's gonna die on, or this is like the hill that he's drawing the line on this in the sand, and that's not going to end up good for him. Like whenever you have in Antigone, Sophocles Antigone, and crayons drawing that line in the
Yeah.
sand, like it's not good. So, and I think risk and chance is something that people just don't get in their brains. How like people, like when they make plans, they think ahead 5 years, and they're like, I'm gonna do this and this, and then I'm gonna be here. But it's not the expected that shifts the course of your life. It's the unexpected things, which is like when he's having a few drinks, right? He's all bummed out. He's having a few drinks and saying things.
Records his rant, right? Yeah.
And
And
then,
then accidentally he means to hit save and he hits send or whatever the wrong button he hit, and it goes to the entire community.
and
So,
that's a, like when that moment happened in Made in Heaven, Stephen, like I got goosebumps. I was like, I got goosebumps, and I was like, yeah, this has happened to like over the course of the last few years. It's different high up people that have been drinking, or they've been out with their friends,
yeah.
or they've been uh, uh, it happens sometimes with sleep medications.
Uh-huh.
They're taking sleep medications where
Or
part of their brain is
they
on and off.
they write something in a text and they send it to the wrong person, and then yeah, there's lots of examples of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that moment for me when he does that, I was like, oh, good God, I wonder, like, you know, he's done, but you don't really know how the play's. You don't really. I was like, oh, so what's going to happen now? So he's like 100% done. You know that.
Yeah.
But then that, yeah. How did you come up with that final scene with Oren? And that was brilliant. Like, was that from the beginning that you had that final scene with Oren and
That
Hans?
was from the beginning. Yeah. The first scene with Oren and the last scene with Oren were in the very first draft that I ever wrote.
And that obviously wasn't based on the real life situation that you had read in the paper. So how did you come up with
No.
this as a resolution to the action?
Um, I'm, I'm not sure. Because when you're writing, you're just like, it's almost like writing in a dream state and you're just coming up with these things. But um, the Oren's track in terms of him being a senior, um, thinking he wants to be an artist, but realizing through the course of the events that happen that his real strength is as a writer, critic, his art historian type of thing, which is why he is pulled into writing about this, which is why he's so smart about art. He can bring up all kinds of things when he talks. And then the fact that his sister, I needed something for him where what were the stakes for him in terms of all of this sexual allegation or all this stuff. And so what occurred to me was the that his sister, that he was very close to, committed suicide because of incest. So that was, he was carrying that burden with him. And I just, the play, Huntsman needed to hear, needed to be able to hear something that would hit him emotionally, where he wasn't being attacked or he was just defensive. And I think Oren brought that to him in that last scene. Like, because Oren came with compassion, he came with understanding, but he also came with his sister's story. And I think it was in that last moment when Oren leaves his sister's portrait at the end that Huntsman had this moment. In fact, in the first draft, I think I had Huntsman weeping at the end, looking at this portrait of his self-portrait that Oren's sister did. So I think I felt like it was important to get at what was really not in the argument and people attacking and defending and getting defensive and all this stuff through the play, that it needed to lead to some moment of real compassion or sensitivity, or that even with Huntsman's arrogance, there's still a human being there. And I think that's why I did that, I think. So,
Yeah, it left me with satisfaction.
oh, good.
I couldn't describe it, but after that video goes out, I was like, good God. And then I was like, I wonder how he's gonna end this thing, because it like does he kill himself? Like, right? It could be like some, but then yeah, with that's brilliant with compassion. I, like when you
And
say it now,
yeah,
yeah. But
he finds the compassion through Oren's sister. Like, he sees this art self-portrait that he sees as really beautifully done by this Orange sister who committed suicide because of incest. And I don't think he intellectually, like, he sees all that, but I think suddenly it just hit him how powerful art is and how it can affect people, and how art that deals with graphic sexual imagery can also hurt.
Oh yeah. No, yeah. No, the 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 art is profound to some people, uh more than others. And so I'll share with you this, you'll get a laugh. So that picture is set like sort of in the hallway. You can just see it in that
Yeah,
hallway.
that's
And
the Velasquez, right?
that's the
Like
Screaming
the
Pope one.
Velasquez or the Francis Bacon did a version of it too, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, this is the Bacon version.
Bacon version, right? Okay.
But that's interesting. I think, oh, no, no. But so the fire alarm monitor, I have a little smoke sensor above that painting, and every year, the Four Seasons fire alarms comes in. I live in this little strata. They test all the fire alarms, and they sort of just puff some little dust and see if the alarm goes off. Well, the technician came by last year, and as he walked around that car, I was just chatting with him, like, "Oh, how's your day going?" Blah blah blah. And as he walked around the corner, he's carrying his ladder. He had this little toolkit. He saw that picture, and he like fell back. I kid
Oh
you,
no.
like I was like, "Hey man, oh yeah, it's right here." Like he turned around and he saw it. Like
Yeah.
he did a double take and he fell back.
Wow.
He was like, "Good," like, and that I was like, I didn't know what to say. I was like, but
Wow.
the the art, it's like for me, it's just something cool, right? It like,
Yeah.
but like
You remember how
trigger,
you remember how you
triggered
felt
him.
when you first saw that painting though?
I first saw that painting when I was in my teens. So back in my back in my teens, I hung around like the cool badass kids, and I didn't know much about art. And when I saw it, I was like, whoa, like the broad brushstrokes, they're barbaric. Like
Yeah.
like he was like yeah, I never knew art could, like, I didn't fall backwards, but it had a big effect on me. I was like, I didn't know like people could paint like this. Like it was just raw, and it was barbaric. The strokes, it was like he was lashing the thing when he was.
Yeah.
So I was like, I gotta get, and then I heard like the provenance of the thing at that time. Like, it's not, it's in a museum now, but at a
Right.
certain stage in its life, I it could be apocryphal maybe, but a New York mob boss had it uh, in above his bed in his bedroom. I was like, that is badass. I gotta get this thing. Thinking as a kid, this is like I was 16. So I called up different local artists like to do it on consignment.
Yeah.
And people would be like, "Oh yeah, Francis Bacon, I know Bacon. Which one would you want?" And I'm like, "Oh, this." And then a couple of them, they just hung up the phone.
Really?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Like,
Wow.
but one of my friends' dad, one of my friends, Carl, his dad is also called Carl Koger. He had he was an artist of local fame, so not internationally famous, but in Victoria, the Canadian city where I live, he was in that circle of artists that were the the best artists in town.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And he had studied Francis Bacon when he was a student. I think it was like some Chicago Art Institute of Chicago.
Art Institute of Chicago. Yeah.
Yeah. So he went there when he was, uh, I think he was in his 50s then, but he went there and he studied Bacon when he was a student. And so I bought the canvas and he did it for a couple of $100. Well, he knew
Oh,
I was kids, like we were kids, and
yeah,
I was washing dishes and I was telling Carl, and then I guess he overheard and he was like, "Hey, well, I can do it for you. I love Francis Bacon." So he said
yeah.
a little. I I did the I bought the canvas and he set up a little stand in his he had a little courtyard and I got to see him make it. We divided up into sections and
Like a
like
grid, right? A
yeah,
grid. Yeah.
the grid, and then we got um like 50 different 50 different photographs. All the colors were a little different, and then I got to see him over the course of a summer. He put
Mm,
that together.
that's awesome. You know, your story about the fire guy who see it falls back, that argument is in the play with when Huntsman brings up the the portraits that Anna what was her name? Anna Mendieta, who did all these portraits of her beat up with blood, and Huntsman says, I would not want to know what those portraits were beforehand, so that my reaction, I would, and then Nancy says, but that's you.
Yeah.
Right. So that how you react to art for the first time, that argument's in there. Do you prepare, or do you have get to experience it for the first time without being prepared? What's the difference in that experience, you know?
Well, the difference is that people experience art differently. Like the person that falls over backwards, like they're gonna be triggered and they're not gonna be happy. They're gonna be like, "What the like? What? Like no, like this ain't good." But if it's like someone like that looking at art academically and is not going to fall over, they're going to be like, what's your problem? It's like just like suck it up, right? But you can't say that to the person that like falling over. They're just falling over and they like feel it.
Right. Yeah.
It's like sometimes I go to like one time it's not visual art, but I went to oh, this is like 10 years ago. I went to see um I love J.S. Bach, the
Uh-huh.
musician. And I went to see Saint, I think it was Saint Matthew Passion.
Uh-huh.
They do it over the holiday season at some of the churches. And during the crucifixion scene, uh, the people sitting in front of me, they were crying. Like they're like real, like and I was like, whoa, like to me, it's like I'm going to see like an oratorio, and it's like the
Uh-huh.
music's beautiful, and the performers are beautiful, and then you're in a beautiful architectural setting. There's stained glass, and it's just right. But it like I'm not crying, but the people like in front of me, like
Yeah.
they were like, and I was like, and so, but now that we're talking about this, Stephen, yeah, they like some people feel art on like a really visceral. I think
Oh
that's
yeah.
the word like that's in the play too. The visceral.
Yeah. The visceral response to art. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, that's what art's, and to me, that's one of the things that art is supposed to do, is to give you a visceral response. I mean, there's all kinds of art. So there's more intellectual experiences, there's an emotional experience, there's a combination, there's conceptual, etc. So there's all kinds of art, but a lot of art creates that strong emotional response to things.
Now,
Whether it, yeah.
oh no, go ahead, go ahead.
I was just going to say whether it's like this a moment of awe
Yeah.
where time stops for you because you're so pulled in by what you're looking at, or if it just hits you hard emotionally. I imagine the first time the world saw Picasso's Guernica might have had a huge, like, oh my God, response to that painting, you know? So, yeah.
And the piece behind you, is that one of your pieces or is it
It
by,
is, yeah. It is one of mine, yeah.
and so is there a title for that, for the piece, or
Yeah, what is the title? Um,
give us a better look of it? Can you move your camera?
oh, can you see it?
Yeah, it's coming through.
Yeah, so it's an more abstract piece. I had these um where did it came from my I was you know about Dada. Have you heard of Dada?
I don't know anything, and perhaps for the people that don't know, give us a little.
So Dada was an art movement that started after World War One, and it was a reaction to um, it was a reaction to modernism, it was a reaction to impressionism, and it was a reaction to World War One and the absurdity of war. So all these artists, Duchamp, Marcel Duchamp, who is probably the most famous of the Dada artists, he's the one everyone probably mentions about. In fact, Huntsman mentions it too, about the toilet bowl that he finds a toilet in an antique shop or some thrift shop, and he takes it and puts it in an exhibition. But Dada created all of this art that was very anti-art, and it deliberately sort of went against conventional forms and conventional techniques, and because the world to them had become absurd and made no sense anymore, and art doesn't even make any sense anymore. So I just had this idea. I was playing off of Dada and sort of making fun of them. Not, I mean, I love Dada, so I wasn't really like mocking them, but so I created this piece that was kind of based off of like what my ideas about Dada. I can't remember the title. It was something silly though. Maybe I can find it quickly. Um, it was something about Dada lied to us. I can't, I don't remember. I'm sorry.
Well,
Uh,
but that's like that's an interesting title too, because the art that lies the most, the art that feigns the most, is the most art.
yeah,
Because there's always that talk about like art as a lie or art
right.
as the truth.
Yeah, but I sort of was just playing off of that idea. I don't remember the title. It was like, oh, it was the something like Dada lied to us, the conflict between I and me. It was something weird like that. So I don't know what it means. It's just,
And the
I was,
conflict between I and me would be spelled EYE or I.
it would be I. But actually,
I
that's
as
even
in like
better.
I the person, or I as in the organ,
I, the person, but actually your idea of turning it into EYE and me sounds even better. So
right?
maybe I'll change the title.
Because it's something, yeah,
Right. Yeah, yeah.
right.
The conflict between I and me. Yeah, that's better than I and me. Thank you. I'm going to change the title now.
I'm glad I'm glad anytime I can do my little bit, I'm happy. So I think these interviews, quite a few, I think it's mostly playwrights. I'll post it on my social media, but I think it's mostly playwrights that tune in, and they'll be interested in your process of creation. So when you are writing this play, I think you put Made in Heaven together in, I think, 4 months. You said, like, quite a quick pace. Like,
Yeah.
what's your day like, and your working conditions and environments? What do you do to make yourself get the ideas to put together the play that you can share with other playwrights that would be interested to hear your thoughts?
Yeah. So the first draft of this went really fast. Usually what happens, and I imagine a lot of playwrights can relate to this, when an idea takes hold and you just like, it starts writing itself kind of thing. But generally what I do, but that was the first draft, which was only 60 pages. The rest of it took years. But what I usually do when I write is I do a meditative breathing exercise before I start, where I'll sit for a few minutes and I'll do some deep breathing. And I'll allow images and ideas that I've been working on to come in and out, however, just to sort of relax myself and get me into a little bit of a state. But I also write when I first get up in the morning, and I don't sleep very well. So when I get up, I'm still tired. And so I'm still kind of in this weird sleep state, which feels like my editor's voice is not as strong, and I can just rely on like the writer's voice that just lets you write what comes out and without judging it. And so I try to do that with first drafts, and even when I'm going back and revising, I'll still do that meditative thing, and I'll let things shift and change. So that's basically my process. I used to outline things. I don't anymore. I think it's because I've written for so long. I think I sort of trust that I'm going to eventually get there. I don't know. So, but usually I learned to write when I first wake up because of this novelist, this writer I met in 2000, I guess. And he is a published novelist, and he won an award several years ago. But one day he had to write. One day I guess he was on a deadline. I can't remember. He decided to get up at 3:30 in the morning to write. And he discovered that suddenly his writing just elevated because he was writing in a kind of dream state. And after that, he always got up at 3:30 in the morning to write, even if he was up till midnight, because that dream state was so what's the word? Was so rich for him and made the ideas just sort of flow. And I think that's where I try to get to when I'm writing. But writing is different for different people. So I don't, but that's just me. So.
It's always good to try different things and to listen to other people and to try different things to find out what works for an individual. And it always helps to try things that the successful people are doing too.
Well, also the hard part is like you have the writer's voice and you have the editor's voice. You need the editor's voice, but not when you're writing kind of first draft stuff or when you're sort of finding your play. You need the editor's voice later on. like after you've written a first draft, where you can then go back and start to look at what you've really done and how you want to shape or reshape. I don't, somebody famous said, maybe it was Hemingway, who said, write drunk, edit sober.
I like that. And that totally sounds Hemingway as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so what I'm getting is that what works for you is to write early in the morning. And early in the morning is when you're able to put your ideas find their form without getting
Without judgment, yeah.
without judgment.
Without me saying, oh, that's no good. Delete that, don't write that. You know, that voice. I'm sure a lot of writers are aware. I bet you're aware of that voice too when you're writing your books too, I imagine. Or maybe you're not. Maybe scholars have a different process. I don't know.
Yeah, what is my process? My process is I've been trying to, I think my chronotype is a night owl type chronotype. But this last year I've been learning about, of all things, sleep. And like you, I'm a horrible sleeper. But as I get older, I'm trying to improve my sleep hygiene.
Mm.
So yeah, I got up at 4:30 now. So this last month, I've shifted over my schedule from I go to bed at 7:30 p.m. and I get up at 4:30 a.m. And one of the things I do, and the reason for that is I love cycling. I'm part of a triple shot cycling club here in Victoria, and we meet at Oak Bay High to do early morning rides because then there's no traffic and you can crash out a good 60, 70 kilometers before work.
Wow.
So, but what they say is that you should keep your same routine every day, like not have like one day where you catch up. So I've been trying that, and it's it's just been a month, so it's been different. The ideas definitely are different than the late night ideas where you're like scrambling like to get everything down, like you gotta go to bed, and then you're
Yeah.
all fired up and it's hard to go to bed because
Right.
you're like that. Before I used to go to bed at midnight and it'd be like, oh, it's 11 o'clock. I gotta get, and then all the ideas come, and then you're like, I gotta shut it down, but you can't really bring the brain to the full stop. So
Yeah.
now I get up in the morning and do my writing. The brain starts up slower, but I try to do my reading late at night now because it's easier to be reading, especially some of the books I got to read, Stephen, like they put
Yeah.
you to sleep.
Oh, I bet. I bet.
So I'll do my reading and then we'll see how that goes. But one thing we haven't touched about is your playwriting influences.
Oh, yeah. Well, early on, which is a wonderful but not the best influence in the world, was Samuel Beckett. And I love Beckett, love everything about Beckett. In fact, Beckett was the thing that fired me up about theater. The first time when I was 17, I saw a production of Waiting for Godot that completely blew my mind. Had no idea what I just watched, but loved every second of it. And so as a writer early on, you could see Beckett influence in my writing, which was not good for my voice. And I don't think Beckett's a great example for any of us to be influenced by his voice. I don't know. But so then of Sam Shepard was an influence for a while. Um, and then I don't know. Uh, I don't know. Shakespeare's been an influence. Paula Vogel, I like her writing a lot, and Annie Baker's a new writer. She's a wonderful writer. Um, but now these days, I'm not necessarily influenced by what other people write. I'm more influenced. Well, I'm influenced by the power of their stories, but also just their um, just them being like surviving and as a playwright or as a writer, because I think it's very, very difficult. So yeah.
What sort of what sort of theater do you think would pick up Made in Heaven that would be interesting for their what I get about theaters, I'm not really myself part of the theater community, but from my interactions with theaters, they all have like a niche. They all have a niche that they do stuff
Yeah.
that they know that can that their clients will come to. What sort of theater would be interested in Made in Heaven?
I, and that's been a question. That's been a question. I don't know. I I used to think that the American Repertory Theater would be a place for something like Made in Heaven, but they don't do this kind of work anymore. They mostly do musicals, and uh, I don't know. I thought maybe some of the big regional theaters around, or maybe like Steppenwolf in Chicago, perhaps. Um, but the problem is a lot of these theaters, they don't take submissions unless it's submitted by a literary agent. So you can't just send your play. Um, so it's just a challenge. Like you hope like you submit the plays to some development places that have connections to these theaters, or somebody sees like, I don't know. So it's a challenge. I really don't know.
Do you have an agent?
No, I don't know.
And I wonder if any agents like I started the competition, but I really have little idea who follows it. I know some people do follow it though,
Yeah,
and it's mainly I think from the jurors that are established. I call them blue whales. They're like
yeah,
there's some magical people in theater that maybe not famous in the household, but they know everyone and they
yeah.
make things happen. I wonder if any agents follow the competition, and if you approached an agent saying, "Hey, I won like this $10,500,
Right.
like, would you be interested in?"
Yeah. I don't know if it really works that way. I was at a uh playwriting uh uh what was it called? Intensive at the Kennedy Center back in 2000 and can't remember, 2008 or nine. I think it was a week-long intensive. Playwrights from all over the country we had to apply, and we were invited, and they had some workshops and different guest speakers. And one of the guest speakers was a woman from an agency in New York. It's a very big agency. I can't remember. And she sat on the stage and told us there were playwrights from like 25 years old up to like 70 years old or something. And she said, nobody, we're not interested in any of you that are in like over 50. don't bother to submit your plays to us. We're interested in young writers who are just coming out of grad schools like Juilliard, for example, where we can shape their career. But we can't shape older writers' careers because you're too old, kind of thing. But Paula Vogel was in the back of the theater. And when this agent was finished and left, Paula Vogel came running down the aisle. Don't listen to her. Don't listen, and jumped on the stage and say, no, no, do not listen to her. Paula Vogel was very upset. And she was like, don't listen to her. You write, you do your best, and somebody will find your play, and don't worry, or something like that.
Okay, so that's how the agents work. They're interested.
They're interested in writers that they can develop, I suppose. That's what this agent was saying. But that was over 10 years ago, so I don't know if things have changed or not. But also other people say, don't go and look for an agent. An agent will find you when you're ready, whatever that means. So I don't know.
Okay, so there's a whole level of different levels of gatekeepers. So there's the theaters, there's the artistic managers and directors at theaters themselves, but they don't actually take unsolicited scripts.
Correct.
They work with literary managers that they know, and they've also have long relationships
Yeah.
with.
Yeah.
And then to get an agent, most of them are looking for younger writers that they can mature together through the course of their professional and artistic careers.
Yeah. I think that seems to be the general thing. I'm sure there are some exceptions, but I think that's probably the way it works.
I found the same thing in publishing. So I've written one book on Risk Theatre and co-written a second book on Risk Theatre with some of the winners in the first couple of years. And none of the publishers would be interested. So I ended up self-publishing. And that was an interesting way of getting past the gatekeepers. The books have sold, the two of them have sold. I stopped counting after 5,000.
Oh, that's awesome.
So for a sort of like theater theory based book, 5,000, I was really happy with. It was more than I thought. So
maybe the book will get into some university theater departments and some of their like dramatic analysis or his classes or something like that. That might be great.
that's my hope. But the one interesting thing of writing the books was that I was approached by a real press after that, and now I write book chapters for them. So
great.
So they're a press that specializes in books for academic libraries. They do compilations. So right now they're doing a compilation of essays on As You Like It. It's As You Like It. So I'm working on that, but I guess my question to you, have you thought self-production? I know some of the winners in previous years, they have really gone out on a limb and self-produced, and then that sort of opened up doors that now they're got into the mainstream. I don't know if that was what was one of the, but it was one of the things. Have you thought about it, or?
off and on, but self-producing is I mean, it's so expensive to produce theater. So I also have a and I get like how hard it is, but playwrights and screenwriters, but I even think more playwrights, we're kind of like which is really weird to me. We're like the bottom of the totem pole. Like it's almost like you're not important. But the weird thing is like, how are we not important? You can't have theater without playwrights. So they're treated really badly. They're often paid the least amount of money, often um, doing letting their plays get produced for free just so they can get it produced, or they get paid the least amount of money. And I've had experience. So this part of me, it's like, no, I'm not like, so my play doesn't get produced. And I can't afford to self-produce a play, but like there's this part of me is like, no, that's not right. Playwrights should not be self-producing. I mean, of course, if you have a lot of money, or if you're a millionaire, or you just have a lot of money that you can use that for, and you want to be a producer slash writer, go for it. I mean, there are writer directors, I guess, well, they still have to raise money. So I don't know. It's very frustrating to me. I had a play done by a university years ago, and they paid the creative team, the designers, all the designers, the director, lighting designer, costume designer, set designer, sound designer, all those people got paid. They refused to pay me.
Oh,
The payment was that they were producing my play, that I should be grateful that they were producing my play. That's the payment.
wow.
And is not unusual point of view.
That's unbelievable.
I know.
And so, like, you're active in the screenwriting world as well.
Well, I write screenplays. Yeah, I've never. Oh, and I've written, and I've shot one with a friend that we're editing now. But I'm not. And I have a couple of producers in LA who are interested in my writing, so they're reading some of my scripts. But that's as far as it's gotten at the moment.
Now, would Made in Heaven be something that would work as a screenplay instead of on stage, or did you write this for the stage and you would like to see it performed on the stage as opposed to?
Right. Well, I wrote it for the stage. And I've had a conversation with somebody about it becoming a film. But in order to turn Made in Heaven into a screenplay, because screenplay is predominantly a visual medium. I mean, I get there are plenty of movies with lots of dialogue, but my mind, I would have, I don't, maybe I could figure it out, but it would be a super challenge to take this 99% dialogue play and turn it into a movie, unless it's just a filmed play. So, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it could be. I don't know. I wouldn't know where to start at the moment. Like I thought about it a little bit. It's like, oh, how do I start? Do I start with like an opening shot of students walking into university campus, or like how does it start, So I don't know.
One of those with the first image that comes to my mind is that sculpture of the person's head.
Oh yeah. What, the bloody head?
Yeah, like then you're gonna be in the show.
Right.
So, but 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 to end, why don't you tell the audience about some of the latest projects you're working on?
Oh yeah. So actually in my art, I'm in an exhibition that opens on Friday in Boston with two other artists. So that's going to be fun. I just hung the show yesterday. But I'm also been writing a musical with a friend for the past 10 years. And Bridgewater State University is going to produce the musical this spring in April 2025 with me as the director. So that could be cool. Yeah. Oh, maybe I can get Made in Heaven produced at a university, you know? It would fit well in a university situation. So, yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah, exactly, right? Because the universities all have their university. And then, that would be such an important thing for the student actors to play these roles,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
It would be,
The thing is that the play would need a trigger warning. Right? Because the play, like the later on, we see some of the Jeff Koons images in the play. So the play that's about trigger warnings would need a trigger warning.
of course. So I think we'll wrap it up. We'll
Okay.
we'll wrap it up there. I'm gonna well, I'll put down, send me a link to your play,
NPX, yeah.
and then and then I'll put the link into the description. I'll also put a link into the description of the two books on Risk that are really the blueprint of how to win this competition. Now that's going on into its 7th year next year, 10,500 for the winner, and there's also 5 $700 finalist prizes, and the odds are it's pretty good. We got the number of entries. It started off at 200, around 200 the first year, and it's been dwindling down. So 121 entries last year. And what we're finding is that there's more purpose written plays. In the first year, there was no purpose written plays for Risk Theatre, but now that the competition's been around for the 7 years, playwrights are deliberately writing plays or modifying their plays
Yeah.
to game the competition to win this, and I would encourage that. We're seeing more plays that are written for the competition or have bits of dialogue changed to make them more likely to be in the money. And I'll also put a link in the description to my academia page. There's a good collection of essays on risk from Hamlet, Merchant of Venice, Thomas Hardy,
Uh-huh.
Hemingway. I'll put a link to that, and those are free for people. And it's a blueprint. If you're trying to win this competition, that's the criteria that the jurors will look at. So here, I'll stop recording, but stay on.